distinguished visitors and distinguished guests here this afternoon, and it's my pleasure first to introduce to you the ghost of Mr. John Goodnow.
Great pleasure to be here this afternoon to recognize the rededication of this facility. As many of you know, the Goodnow family has a long-standing history in the town of Sudbury. My great-great-great something or other grandfather, Edmund Goodnow, came to Sudbury in 1638, along with his brothers John and Thomas, his sister Ursula, and a second sister named Dorothy, who became Dorothy Ruddock, wife of John Ruddock, another one of the 53 settler families that settled in Sudbury in 1638. Of course, my family moved out of the east side, Wayland side of the river, in the mid-1600s, and eventually settled in the Lanham district on the road to Framingham. In fact, the home that I lived in with my 6 brothers and 3 sisters, and where my father, at age 99, still lives today, still stands on that road to Framingham in the Lanham district. This is a very special occasion for me. I'm very pleased to see the rededication of this facility, and I'd like to remind you of the thought that went behind the gift that made this all possible. I read from the will of John Goodnow. In the name of God, amen. I, John Goodnow, of the county of Suffolk, in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, merchant, do hereby ordain and publish this my last will and testament, in manner and form following, that is to say, first, I give, devise, and bequeath unto the town of Sudbury in the county of Middlesex the sum of $20,000 to be appropriated for the purpose of purchasing and keeping a public library for the benefit of the inhabitants of that town. Second, I give, devise, and bequeath unto said town of Sudbury 3 acres of land in the northerly part of the Sudbury Tavern estate, adjoining the land of Howe Brown, beginning at the Meeting House Road and running with equal width with Brown Line to the brook, for the purpose of erecting thereon a suitable building for a library. And the further sum I give of $2,500 for the erection of such a building. I'm very pleased to see what became of that bequest. This is a building we can all be very proud of, and which many generations in the future will enjoy. I'm also very pleased to acknowledge, that Mrs. Ralph Waldo Emerson, her son Mr. Edward Emerson, Mrs. John Thoreau, and these young ladies of Concord have joined us today for the dedication of this historic Atkinson wing. Mr. Emerson has graciously agreed to share with you the name of our first librarian and read some of the rules under which the library will operate during those first years. Mr. Emerson.
Before I begin, I think we should give a round of applause to our brave boys in blue who came back from Virginia to lead us. And my father, Ralph Waldo Emerson, was unable to attend this afternoon. He is currently on a lecture tour up in Canada. And for those of you who might have heard, he was involved in a fire in Niagara Falls, but he escaped and he's doing just fine. We recently received a letter, and Father's doing just fine. But he sends his regards to all of you here in Sudbury. I think we're all a little bit jealous up in Concord because we don't have a library yet. We do have a small collection in the townhouse and private libraries, of course. But Father's looking forward to coming back to Concord and visiting the library here in Sudbury in the next couple of weeks. I'd like to announce that Mr. Samuel Puffer has been engaged to assume the position as the first librarian of the Goodnow Public Library. Now, of course, he's in charge, and he will be in attendance to take care of all delivery and return of books when the library is open. He's to keep an accurate record of all books, and of course he's to keep a fire in the stove. He's prepared to report his activities and the state of the library to a committee member when asked. When the library officially opens its doors, Mr. Puffer will have in his care a collection of 2,300 volumes of books and periodicals. So it's very impressive, yes. Now, of course, the hours of operation. The library will be open Wednesdays and Saturdays from 2 until 9 p.m. Committee members may visit the library at any time, whether the library is open for business or not, And the rules to be enforced by Mr. Puffer: no person shall be allowed to take books from the shelves except those in charge of the library. No person shall be allowed more than 2 books at a time, which seems very reasonable to me. And no family shall be allowed more than 4 books at a time. And those are the rules. If you have any questions, certainly ask Mr. Puffer when you see him when you come into the library. But be that as it may, I would like to introduce Mr. David Levington, who is a trustee of the Goodnow Library. If you have any questions about these rules, I'm sure he'll be.
Getting back to the new millennium, when we planned this evening's afternoon's activities, our most difficult decision was where to hold these brief remarks. We knew we'd be more comfortable in the new building, but thought since we're dedicating and naming the old building, it'd be best to do it here. So we made a compromise, and we decided we'd make the remarks as brief as possible. I hope none of you mind if the remarks are brief. I wonder if I could ask those of you who are standing here in the podium to move forward. I know you have to crane your necks a little bit. It might allow some other people to get in and hear us a little more easily. Thank you. I have only good news to report to you. First, regarding the building process of building the new Goodnow Library and restoring this wing, I'd like to report that we're finished. Everything is here. Those things that are not here have been ordered. Here in the pavilion room, you'll see the furniture is complete. You can see a list of the key restorations is printed on a little handout on the 2 tables in this room. Those of you who are not here might come later and see them here in this room. In the historic documents room, which will be open to the public only by appointment, it will be secured because we have all our historic records in there. There will be furniture in the 1890s era tradition. A conference table, a table for storing and displaying maps, work tables, and we're very proud to say we'll have an 1895 computer desk in there. As part of the design one that we came up with, the fireplace will have a working gas grill in it. And we're glad about that also. I'd also like to report very briefly on finances. This has been a great undertaking. We've been successful in getting support from the state, from the town, and from many of you as private donors. As a result, I can tell you that everything we have, everything we ordered, is paid for. We finished our fundraising and been very successful at it. Part of our financial plan required us to find all the support we could from the Commonwealth, which Hans Lopeter did extensively, and it took several years. Because in addition to the money that our taxpayers raised, we had to apply for competitive grants. And in order to get those competitive grants, we needed all the help we can get. And our legislators, Senator Fargo and Representative Pope, were tremendously supportive and helpful and influential in getting the grants to make this building, this restoration possible. At this point, I'd like to on their behalf, thank and recall on Representative Susan Pope, who's here with us today.
Thank you. It's certainly a thrill for me to be here. I'd like to say that I had a small part to play, but libraries are the important places where you can come. It doesn't matter whether you're wealthy or you're poor. The library stands for everyone, and I know Sudbury is very, very proud of what we have here. I have to tell you a little story about Hans. When I was first elected, I was holding my office hours in Sudbury, and I often hold them in libraries, as a matter of fact, but the first time I held them in Sudbury, I was at the town hall. And it was an evening, I was holding them in the evening, and somehow when I got there, the town hall had made a mistake. I was locked out. And I was newly elected, and I was petrified. I thought, my golly, what am I going to do? So I sat down on the front steps of the town hall thinking, well, maybe no one will come. Well, up drove Hans. And from that day on, he and I have been working together. He is not bashful about picking up the phone, asking me for things, and it's really been a pleasure working with him. Behind his back, I call him Ambassador Hans. And I thought I had been finished with him when this whole library came to fruition and everything was nicely set. But early November, he called me at the office and he said, Susan, We need the debris moved from the front of the building where when they did the paving and the curbing, they left a lot of debris. He said it looks awful. Now I think, gee, I can do a lot of things, and I don't know if I can help on this, Hans, but I made a few phone calls, and I crossed my fingers, hoping it was going to be done, because then I thought, if it isn't, I'm going to get my oldest son, and I'm going to come up with I'm going to shovel this stuff out. But about a week later, Hans called me, and he said, thank you very much, it's all moved. And he gave a sigh of relief and said, you're welcome, Hans, anything for you. But I'd also like to present this pineapple, the sign of hospitality, to David as a sign of hospitality always for the town of Sudbury and their library. And I also have a citation that I would like to read. The Commonwealth of Massachusetts, the House of Representatives, be it hereby known to all that the Massachusetts House of Representatives offers its sincerest congratulations to the Goodnow Library Board of Trustees in recognition of the dedication of the Atkinson Historic Wing. The entire membership extends its very best wishes and expresses the hope for future good fortune and continued success in all endeavors. Given this 9th day of January 2000 at the State House, Boston, signed by Thomas N. Finneran, Speaker of the House, and offered by Susan Pope, your state rep. Congratulations.
My candidate for the unsung hero of this whole process is our director, Bill Valentino. I'm sure you can recognize that during the planning of this, and especially during the beginning of construction, when the whole library moved to Town Hall, Bill and the entire staff just did a yeoman-like job. I think we had excellent service throughout the transition and had very little disruption. What I particularly admire Bill for, and what I think we should all be grateful, is that during the 3 or 4 years the library was being planned, there had to be hundreds of decisions made about the size of this unit, the size of that unit, storage areas, areas for working on books, places for you all to be comfortable, things that would make the library flexible for the future, things that would make it modern and up-to-date for the current time. Since we opened, I can think of nothing that's come up and said, gee, I wish we had thought of that. I think Bill thought of just about everything. He worked with our architects, with our professional staff, and I think I know we have a library we're all proud of, but we really also have a library that functions beautifully. One that is good to work in, to study in, to learn in. I'm thankful. I think we're all hard to Bill for that, and I'd like to express that. Bill?
Yeah.
Thank you, Dave. That's extremely kind. It is fitting to draw the library's building project to a close with the celebration of the restoration of its 19th century wing. It all began here in 1862 as a result of the singular generosity of a former town resident, John Goodnow. Although the donation of money and land was extremely generous, what made his gift so remarkable was its intent to establish a public library, a municipal agency with the charge of collecting and distributing books and magazines to meet the needs and interests of all residents of the community. The notion of a public library was new at that time. There were only about 10 public libraries in existence in Massachusetts. John Goodnow's investment was a leap of faith for what was, at that time, a novel enterprise for serving the common good. 138 years later, the Goodnow Library is one of the most valued and heavily used town services. It's an integral part of Sudbury's life. We are celebrating a restoration and expansion that would allow the library to continue to serve the community in the 21st century. Today's celebration is made possible by the generosity of all of you, the current residents of Sudbury, and many generations will benefit from it. In addition to the pride, satisfaction, and relief associated with realizing our goal, there is also a sense of sadness This has been a unique experience, a once-in-a-lifetime experience for many of us. It has been a privilege and a pleasure to work with everyone who took part in this effort. Knowing that many of us won't work together again or in a similar capacity leaves me with a sense of deep appreciation and loss for the experience. I'd like to take this opportunity to express my appreciation to you. The restoration project in particular would not have taken place without Hans Lopater. He proposed it as a new goal, he identified key funding for it, and he shepherded it through its completion. And he began this effort while serving as chairman of the building committee and the trustees. He was already working full-time on the expansion project when he took on these added responsibilities. With Hans, nothing short of complete success was an option. I've worked with many fine committees over the years, but never with one in which all of its members were as committed and made as many contributions to a goal as the current library trustees. In addition to Hans, Tom Arnold, Joe Brown, Phyllis Cullman, Carol Hall, and our current chairman, Dave Levington, invested a tremendous amount of thought and effort to make all aspects of this reach fruition. Whether addressing design, cost, or policy issues, or participating in fundraising, landscaping, furnishing, and other activities, they committed themselves individually and as a group to achieving success. Many of us have said that the members of the permanent building committee are the town's unsung heroes. This project offers further testament to their heroics. It has been our good fortune to work closely with Frank Schimmuller and Elaine Jones on the library's expansion and restoration. The expertise and energy that they brought to this project were absolutely essential to its success. They never hesitated to take on a challenge, including adding the restoration project to the overall building project. In addition to the permanent building committee, we had two other invaluable assets on our side: the Friends of the Goodnow Library and the Sudbury Foundation. We always operated from a position of strength because of them. Our confidence in the success of this project was due in large part to knowing we had their support. The officers, members, and volunteers associated with the Friends and the Foundation made it possible for us to set and achieve our highest goals. We also had the good fortune of working with very talented and dedicated architects and other professionals. In particular, it was a pleasure to work with Kevin Latari, our principal architect. Much of what makes this project special comes as a result of his talent and effort. A number of behind-the-scenes contributions and sacrifices were made on behalf of the library's building project. Special thanks go to the families of the trustees, friends, committees, and architects. Their spouses and children gave up a great deal so that we could achieve our goal. Many town departments committed themselves and assisted us behind the scenes. Not only did they help when they were asked, but they offered valuable suggestions and assistance to improve the project. Former library trustees made major contributions in the early days. Ivan Lubash, Ken Ritchie, Gilla Montabers. And as our representative stated, two state agents, the state played a big role in this. It would not have happened without the state. Two state agents made this entire project possible. Without the support of the Mass Board of Library Commissioners, our state library agency, the entire project would never have taken place. They committed $1.7 million and a tremendous amount of expertise to this effort. And the Mass Historical Commission made the restoration project possible. It takes more than a great building to make a great library. And the library staff cannot be given enough praise for their efforts. Although working under duress, the staff never faltered in serving the community throughout this endeavor. They carried out the regular duties and contributed significantly to many of the building project's activities. I'll end by thanking John Goodnow and all of you again for your generous support. Sudbury deserves a great library, and you've provided it.
Bill mentioned the Friends of the Library, the Friends of the Goodnow Library. I hope you all realize, I'd like to tell you to some extent what a great contribution they make under their president, Billy Gordon, who is among you here in the pavilion room. The Friends is our largest community organization, with I believe over 700 families in it. And our goal of making the library more of a community resource is being because of their efforts as much as anything. The Friends provide all the enrichment that the community wouldn't have otherwise. The programs for children, the programs for adults, the lectures, the movies, the passes. If we need a piece of equipment that we can't fit in the budget, the Friends raise the money for it. They've done immense things to make this a center of our community, and we appreciate that. More than that, Lily took on the responsibility of chairing the fundraising plans we had, which we call Build for the Future. When we started to build the library, we realized the amount of money we could ask the town for, plus what the state would give us, was enough to build a building, but not to furnish it. All the furnishings you see here, all the landscaping, all the furnishings in the new building, all the equipment, 32 computer terminals, everything else that's here, was paid for by money raised by those citizens of the town and organizations of the town that were willing to support us beyond and above the call of duty. The total amount of money that Lily and that group raised exceeds $700,000. And it's what makes this library just something very special, and I think makes it so acceptable and approval to the town. Lily, thank you to your board, to your members, and to you. Bill also mentioned, as he should, and as we all would expect, the Sudbury Foundation. Everyone who lives in Sudbury, really owes a great debt to Esther and Herbert Atkinson, who lived here and left a tremendous endowment to us in the Sudbury Foundation. The Sudbury Foundation, through its administrator, Gary Tanner, and its trustees, Rich Davison and John Taft, have been supportive of our plans to build this new library and to restore this building from the initial idea to the present. They've given us every kind of assistance and encouragement they could. In addition, Rich has participated with us in the planning and in the work of getting this new library built. It's time right now to do what I think is my official duty, and that is to change the name of this wing. And Rich is here. Rich, I guess within the bounds of my responsibility, I hereby declare that this room, the pavilion room, and the historic documents room, and the reception area, and the rest of the 1895 and 1862 wings will hereby be known and hereafter be known as the Atkinson Wing of the Goodnow Library. Thank you.
As you know, on April, I think it was the 11th of last year, we had a celebration, not in here because this wasn't even started to be restored at that point, but in the library, to celebrate the phenomenal job that all the people that have been mentioned today achieved by rebuilding and enlarging the Goodnow Library. The word that to me is key is the issue of community. If there is any single institution in the town of Sudbury that fosters community, it's been over a number of years, and again, for the reasons and for the people that have made it so, the Goodnow Library. So when my colleagues and I on the Sudbury Foundation were approached in the very beginning to participate in this, for us this was a no-brainer. From our perspective, helping with the catalyst to make something like this happen was just such an obvious thing to do. And so I only wish that Herb and Esther could be here today. If they were, they would probably be somewhat chagrined and mortified. First, I'd be amazed at where the Sudbury Foundation is from whence they started it 48 years ago. But I think they would be tremendously pleased. And we are pleased as those entrusted with carrying it forward. We are very pleased to be able to memorialize their name in having the wing named after them. But the thanks really go to not only all of the people that have been mentioned, but really all the citizens of Sudbury, because it's the support for the library over the years in the very many ways that happens, whether it's through the friends, whether it's just coming and using it, that have made the Goodnow Library stand out as being tremendously active, which obviously is an influence to the state in their funding. But to me, finishing this historic wing in many ways is a capstone to this project. So I am very pleased that my colleagues and I have had a chance to participate in it and to do our part. And I guess my question is, how many of you have been in these two rooms today for the first time since it's been completed? Raise your hand. Well, what do you think? Is it a success?
Yeah.
Thank you. We haven't been as brief as I'd hoped. There's a lot of things we had to say. One is to let you know that one of our trustees, Phyllis Cullinane, couldn't be with us today. She's ill, and we hope she'll be back in a few days with us, and we send her our hopes and prayers. And I can't conclude without, again, identifying the key individual in this entire project, Hans Lopez. Hans was chairman of the trustees for most of the period of this building, always chairman of the building committee, and he was the person who took responsibility for seeing that this become what we have today. On behalf of the other trustees and all of us, Hans, thank you very much. We're going to have some refreshments in the meeting room downstairs. There's some activities that will be going on in the children's library. I'd like to again thank Mrs. Emerson, her son, Mr. Emerson, Thoreau. They're staying for the afternoon. I hope you'll meet them, and they can tell you more about their town of Concord. It's about a 7-mile walk from here, they tell us. Thanks to the junior volunteers of Concord. Thanks to the Minute Company, Fife and Drum Corps. A special thanks to the Garden Club, who made our handsome building beautiful for the weekend. Thanks to all our families and spouses, particularly mine, for putting up with us. And thanks to all of you for coming. I hope you're enjoying and celebrating this as much as we are, and I hope you'll enjoy the rest of the afternoon. Thank you very much.